Right, and here we got Sam and myself, and Craig is online. So why don't we start right away with purchases over 20,000?
Okay, we have two tonight. The first one is phase 4 of the facilities master planning agreement with PRA. They kind of talked about it a little bit when they were here at the board meeting last time. It's the community engagement portion. So we didn't initially pay for that. That was built in, like if we wanted to go that far, but I think that that's the trajectory we were on. So it costs $24,000. That's why it's here tonight. I don't know if there's any more questions or anything else about that.
All I'm seeing is that well, maybe that's just at the bottom, it's probably somewhere else. It just says, at the bottom 2 pages just say $0. But, okay, I think I found the other section now. Okay, no, I'm good on that.
I'm good too. Craig, I don't know if you can hear us. Do you have any questions on that? I'm gonna assume.
No, I don't.
All right. Very good. You want to move on with the transit?
Yeah, so the second one is, we're proposing purchasing another transit passenger van for district use. So we have 2 vans right now. One was purchased with special ed funds, so it's only available to the special ed department. The second one was purchased with the intention of being for the special ed department, so they have priority use for that. And between those 2 vans are pretty much booked almost every day with the special ed department. But we have many, many other teachers requesting using the van. So we just would like to get at least one more. We did build it into the budget this year. Did you have something you wanted to add to?
Well, just that, this quote, we are at the end, we're getting towards the end of the model year. We held this off trying to make sure we were going to have it in the budget, for this year. We are at the end of the model year. So when talking with Andy, he's not 100% confident that we'll get this order in for a 2024 model year. We're trying to get it approved now, because if we brought it next month, I think that's when Jesse brought his van, was in October, November. Andy said by then they'll probably be in the 2025 year already. So we're trying to sneak this one in and get it in right at the end, so we can hopefully get 2024 model year pricing.
And if not, we'll have to do like the plow truck.
Well, what we'll do then is we'll get a new quote for 2025 and bring it back at a later place. We won't place the order. I learned my lesson with that other one.
Yeah.
We won't place the order unless you approve what we're actually ordering.
Great, you got his hand up.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
Great.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I never remember if like how many passengers are we allowed to have for a van as a district?
10, including the driver.
Okay, gotcha. And that's gonna be adequate for our needs for the short term, we hope?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we do have lots of requests for the van where people would fit in it. So there even, I think it was Golf was looking for a van. I can't remember what, tennis. And then lots of different, just small department kind of things. So, the CTE department sometimes wants to use the van for different things that they do. I think we would have no problem filling a schedule with a 3rd van.
Okay, no concerns here.
Okay. Same here, Sam.
No concerns on my end.
All right. It looks like everything purchases over 20,000. We'll move forward till Monday night. All right. Construction manager RFP.
So this is going to be another part of the facilities master plan as well. And PRA was kind of talking about this when they were here too, that one of the next steps is to get a construction management group on to lead us first through some of the communication piece, and then all the way into a project if we are to go that far. So even if it was a maintenance project, if it's a building project, whatever it may be, they would be working with the district through that whole process. So we put together this RFP. I don't know if you had a chance to look it over, if anybody has any questions about it, if you want me to talk any more about it.
I looked it over earlier. I didn't really see anything that stood out to me with it. It looked pretty straightforward.
We tried to keep it shorter than the last one.
Any questions from you, Sam? Have you had a chance to look at it? Craig, you got any questions on it?
Just the high points, I guess, the need for a construction manager would be to, help facilitate, what PRA is trying to facilitate with the district. Is that correct?
Yeah, they would work together. So PRA would be doing design and then construction management group would be doing the construction side of it if we were to go that far. But then in the pre-stages, they provide communication help as well. So when we're going through these surveys and like just even trying to figure out what direction the board is going for sure, they can help guide through that process. Do you have anything else that you would add to that, Kevin?
Just that once we start going, PRA and even JP Collin to this point, they've been using like general
So what-
split. Craig, go ahead, buddy. I'll let you go.
Are you muted?
Craig, you're muted if you were talking.
Sorry about that. I was, I just had a question about like, so the RFP would be to have them, what, kind of on retainer for now? Is that it? Because I mean, we still are trying to figure out what makes sense for the district at this point, right?
Right. How would you explain that?
Oh, what we'd be doing is we're looking for two services as part of this RFP. The first one is pre-referendum, which is where they provide pricing support to help get some some tighter dollar numbers to the different proposals that PRA might put forward, and then be able to communicate that out to the community, when there's questions on that. The second part is actually providing the construction management services in a GMP, method for any project that is brought up.
And this would be different from a construction consultant that would be kind of overseeing those types of operations or what?
Like an owner's rep kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, like we had a consultant when we did a lot of the air conditioning stuff. And then we had a general basically that would oversee everything else. I don't know. I guess
Wasn't that all CG Schmidt, Craig? I thought even the consultant
I don't-
side came from CG Schmidt.
No.
No, there was.
yeah, it was more than just Steve Schmidt.
It was, oh my gosh, I'm trying such a blank here.
Oh, yeah. I got you. You were right, Craig, yeah.
Oh, I can't think of what that company's called.
I'm drawing a blank also.
Mike Hacker from
Cadence.
Cadence Consulting. So no, this would not be the same method. This would be, we would not have an owner's rep at this point in this project. That would probably be something that if we had a successful referendum, we would then make a choice about whether we felt comfortable working with me representing the district in communication, with the daily communication with the construction manager. What we felt about our relationship with the construction manager and if we felt that was needed or not. It would not preclude us from using an owner's rep at any means at this point, but it also doesn't tie us into using an owner's rep.
Yeah, I think I remember vaguely the rationale behind why we did that at the time is we didn't have perhaps a secure, we didn't have you, Kevin, in position at that time, I guess. And then the other part was that we were trying to, I mean, Sarah was new to the role and we were also trying to look to manage some of the the COVID relief funds, the requirements of that as well, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
Yeah, good memory, Greg. I agree. I think, my opinion as of today, right, I think Kevin is more than qualified to take us through the steps until Kevin comes to us and says, oof, I could use a hand, right? And at that point in time to cross that bridge, but that's my opinion. I'm not saying it's gospel. I'm just saying it's my opinion. If you guys are comfortable with that as well.
Well, I just was trying to understand the steps in the process. I mean, when it comes to this particular RFP, it sounds as though we're looking to try to come up with some numbers more firm numbers when it comes to any type of a direction that we want to go as a district. When it comes to the potential building projects that are being like tossed around, and or maybe there's another idea that this construction manager might have as well. Is that kind of the idea?
So yeah, bringing him on at this point, especially, why the design team really, I think, is asking to have the help of a construction manager come on now, is that as they're designing things, the construction manager might be able to say, hey, projecting out 5 years, getting steel is gonna be insane. If we can use, concrete masonry units for a larger part of the building, we might be able to achieve cost efficiencies or cost savings, things like that. And they also might look to get help with the constructability of a plan to say, you know what, on our site, I'm just kind of picking out here, we want to build across the street from the high school. We're going to have to do a bunch of civil excavation there. That's going to drive the cost up. Maybe we want to look at moving it to a different part of the site or something like that. So really they're bringing in the actual construction expertise that PRA doesn't have to help aid them in their design process. And that's why, we look to bring them on before we even have the project like going or have a defined project, because they might be able to help us realize a lot of cost savings or make sure the project is realistic before we even take it to the community.
Mhm. Greg, do you have any more questions on the RFP? Sam, do you have any questions on the RFP?
No, I kind of hear what you're saying. It's like, it's the difference between it's the difference between mathematics and applied mathematics, kind of. You gotta deal with like, some real world knowledge, but if you have real world knowledge, it means you're not gonna necessarily have as in-depth an understanding of architecture and the stuff like that. So that makes sense to me personally. I've worked with engineers and I always forget what the other group is called, but I know there's constant bickering between the two. The people who want it made perfectly and the people want it made so that it'll work reliably, and you gotta find a middle ground between the two.
Yes.
And this construction management company, this firm would then also provide some engineering experience then too that might be necessary, or is that something that we would be expected to go out to RFP at that time when we need it?
Usually, so the design firm carries, the mechanical, electrical, civil, structural. They will carry a suite of engineers for the design and anything that is required to get like the state stamp of approval on any of our plans. The construction manager will probably put some money into when they bring us that GMP, they will probably include in their costing, like a geotechnical engineer that will go out and actually do soil samples and any boring or anything like that. The way I like to think about it, the services are, if it's a design on paper, if it's a part of the paper design of the building, it usually falls under the architect's contract. If it's actually somebody with a shovel out in the field, that falls under the construction manager. So they would provide the engineering services. It might not be the actual company doing the work. They might contract it out to a different firm to do the engineering services, but it would be held in the construction manager's bid or in their contract.
Right, okay, but
And-
we haven't hired PRA officially for the architectural part of things, so that's why I was kind of confused about.
That's correct.
Okay,
But no, I guess to say, no, we would not be looking, in a design, in working with our architect, if we do move to that area and we're ready to have PRA come in and start doing the design, we might utilize a process called design assist, where the, construction manager could ask the district if we wanted to enter in and bring a plumber, electrician or HVAC group, or I suppose we could go even further, but those are the three main ones. They could ask us to go out to contract with one of those companies before we have a drawing set, so that we could get their advice and their assistance in the design of those portions of the project. But that would be a decision that would come later down the road, and we would make that choice with the construction manager and with the architect partner at that time.
Now, with that, would you be holding, if we did something similar to that, would the district be holding the contract for, say, the electrical or plumbing, whatever we use? Or would that still fall under construction manager?
Typically in a GMP, all of the contracts are going to fall under the construction manager. In that case, they would probably not be taking a hard bid to a contractor. They would kind of be doing like we're doing and saying, what's your percentage fee on design? And then what would the design cost be? And I'm not trying to say that we go down that route. That is
Right.
something that I worked in one group, where it was really helpful because we were going through some really difficult controls design. And, we needed the actual controls contractor on board to be able to do some of that work. There's also been things, I've been involved in it where we basically rubber stamped, or the electrical consultant that was brought on said, holy cow, your electrical engineer was great. We do it exactly the same way. And it was kind of a wash. So that's why we gotta weigh what the construction manager thinks of the plans and how the design team feels about the work that their engineer did before we even go down talking about those. If that makes sense. Craig, did I answer your question? I'm sorry if I went on a bird walk there.
yeah, did it to an extent. I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around the process when it comes to specifically if we're working with the public to try to understand where the public is at, I just don't want to be putting the cart before the horse. If the public says that, we don't really want to go forward with any of this, and but yet we're spending money on, a construction manager to help us define what we want. I mean, we clearly, are we just trying to seek, I mean, obviously there has to be a conversation somewhere from the board as far as which direction we should go. And I'm assuming this is part of that preliminary process before we even go to the public with something. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you are correct about that. So even if we signed it with the construction management group, that in no way implies that there's going to be a project. We have that even in the RFP a couple times. We were really clear about that. So they might come in, they might help us with communication, and we might get, feedback from the public that that's not the way they want to go. And that would not, that would be completely fine. That's what we're looking for. That is what the agreement will eventually say with whoever we go with.
Got it.
Any further questions on the RFP? All right,
Hello.
hearing none.
Hmm.
Craig, welcome. that will move forward then to Monday night as well. Preliminary budget.
Okay, so this month for the budget, I have a couple updates and then I did add the draft budget that is in the format that the DPI requires to get published. So you can see every fund in that format. So that is new this month. And if we look at the, if you look at the, what did I call it? The budget notes. There's just a couple things I wanted to highlight that changed. So we got an updated estimate on property values. I had been using 3% increases for property values and the updated estimate is 5.9%. That makes the mill rate drop a little bit more yet. And then, of course, after the HR committee, our 9% health insurance increase is 7%, which is good. That created a little bit of savings. And so once I got the benefits updated and then all of our new hires updated and tweaked all of that, that puts us at about a $5.5 million projected deficit rather than a 6.5. So that's some positive news. Other than that, everything is the same for this month. There are no other changes. And then this is going to go to the board to get approved prior to the final budget, which is the statute that's required by statute. And then in October, we'll get our final numbers, so we'll know the final revenue amounts. Though that should be the only thing that changes between now and October. We'll get the pupil count done next week, I think, is the pupil count, or it's this Friday. And then we'll get the final property values and we'll get the final equalization aid amount. So that will put the finishing touches on the budget. So the only thing you really should expect to see change between now and next month is the revenue side for Fund 10.
So I want to say it was like a couple of years ago. We, as a committee, came up with a recommendation to when the property valuation came in, it was very different from what we were expecting as far as the mill rate was concerned, and we made a decision to go with a lower mill rate at that time. Is that something that we're going to be faced with this time around? There's not that much of a change when it comes to the property valuation.
It will make the mill rate go down. And I was trying to dig around and see how much of this increase is new building, new property. And it doesn't seem like much of it is. It's like in the 1% range. So that means like people's properties went up. So even though the mill rate's going to go down, the actual tax bills are probably not going to go down very much.
So if I remember this logistically correctly, the valuation of the properties went up. Mill rate was the same. Because our what we could levy for taxes was the same, right? And we chose to, how did that work?
If I remember right, now you're stretching my brain again. If I remember right, we lowered the mill rate, which lowered taxes. We were able to do it because we had a budget surplus yet.
Right.
And since we didn't need the money, we relieved taxpayers of some of that burden that would have been there otherwise, knowing full well that we're gonna have to, at some point in time, need money in the future, but at least saved the public when we could, right?
So maybe like the district didn't levy as much as they could have levied that.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So then, this is a situation where property values have gone up or increased. And yet, we're just keeping the mill rate the same. We're assuming this,
Well, it's my assumption that we would levy as much as the district can levy since we're looking at a deficit,
okay,
but the mill rate will go down.
The
But
mill
the
rate will-
total levy is gonna stay the same,
the mill rate will go down because the property value is higher,
right?
Right, and you can only level or levy,
right?
there's a ceiling on what you can levy.
Okay.
I think I have it, I can't remember if I have it in here somewhere, if it's in the presentation I was making for next month, but if you look at the overall levy for the last 4 years, it stayed very consistent within a couple $100,000. It's like right around the $20 million mark.
Oh. Alright,
Sam, any questions?
No, it's making sense to me as much as it can after being on the board for a few months.
I
So
get it.
I'm following along.
I get it.
I think that's pretty good.
Yes.
I don't, for some reason, I am not grabbing my administrative content the way I should. I don't understand.
Yeah, you gotta log out, log back in again.
Oh, here we go. Sorry.
I
Alright,
should say too, so this budget is proposing, prepaying debt again this year. To try and keep the mill rate a little bit higher, to keep the levy the same in hopes that we do then pass an operational, and that gives us like that little bit of room.
okay,
So right now I have it, I am still working out the final number of what we can do because we're actually very close to paying all the debt off. But that is included in here. If you look at the Fund 38 and Fund 39, it's a higher debt payment to prepay some debt.
And that we've talked about in the past as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's. If there's no further questions, this will move forward. All right, going on to planning calendar. I like this, we're moving along nice tonight, especially being 2 meetings.
I didn't make any changes to the calendar. I think that, I was trying to remember if we talked last month about the fact that we no longer need that 660301 agreement with Houston School District, so I took that off. But that was the only change that was made to this. Oh, and I did add in March, putting in a budget planning timeline. So we can put in a timeline for the whole year.
Mhm. Anything else that you guys think we should see on our calendar? I've got nothing.
I'm still stuck on the preliminary budget, but that's just me.
Oh, yeah, no, I started doing the same thing and then I
Yeah.
went, no, I don't wanna sit here till 9:30, so,
Yeah,
I mean, if you wanna sit here till 9:30, we can, but.
um. Budget and tax levy, auditor contract, which, okay, and your capital improvement and plan. So in December, when we discussed the 10-year capital improvement plan. I mean, I know that we worked with one in the past, but, with. PRA and kind of identifying some of those needs and, what we're hoping to accomplish with, an operational referendum. That seems like that's gonna be very much up in the air, right? I mean, there's gonna be a lot of work that's going to go into a 10-year capital improvement plan. What do we hope to accomplish by discussing that in December, I guess?
My assumption is that's gonna stay pretty fluid, is my assumption,
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a much better idea of what the real capital needs are for the next 10 years because of the work that PRA did and Upper 90. I know we have a few different versions of that 10-year capital plan coming into this. We've both seen different versions, so I think that we'll be able to have a more solid version. And then I know we won't know what we're going to do yet, like if we're gonna address all that maintenance with a referendum. Well, I mean, there's a lot up in the air, but it at least will give us more of a actual plan to work with. Like these are real dollars that we're going to need over the next 10 years, assuming everything stayed status quo.
Plus, we need board approval of a 10-year plan in order to stay within the requirements for fund, to utilize Fund 46.
Good point, right?
So we have to have something that's
Sure.
approved.
And, I mean, at some point, I mean, as a committee, we probably should. We should probably discuss that as far as like, do we kind of stick to the, status quo type of situation? You know, if we are trying to maintain the status quo, do we approve a 10-year capital improvement plan based on that information? Or do we have like maybe a plan B, which is, this is what we would do if we were to receive an operational referendum, and a plan C, this is what we would do if we receive a operational referendum plus a capital improvement style referendum. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. So we would be like different scenarios of how much funding we would have
Right,
in those years. Yeah.
because, I mean, it seems like, I don't want the capital improvement plan just to be like a formality. I'd really like to have it be something meaningful that we could use when we need to use it. I don't know. And it's like, it's impossible to plan for the future sometimes when you don't know what the public wants to do, wants us to do as a district moving forward. So, do we then just make the assumption that if this is the status quo, this would be our 10-year capital improvement plan? And I don't think we can maintain the status quo. We have to make some decisions, hard decisions too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if we were to maintain the same level of funding that we have right now,
Yeah,
and then the needs that we know that we have in the next 10 years, it isn't really possible, right, to pay for all of that
Right.
with the funding that we have. But it is possible to think, what can we do with the funding that we have, and what is the priority? What should we be working on first?
and is December when that 10-year capital improvement plan is due, or is that,
No, I think we threw December out just because it gives time then to plan for summer projects
okay,
and to get that kind of stuff in place.
Yeah.
That really was the only thinking behind it.
sure. I just wanna know how much time we have to like start wrapping our minds around some of that planning, I guess. In which case we would have to adapt our calendar. All right,
Yeah, and I think just like you say, it is a fluid plan. It's not
Okay.
like once you say this is a good plan, you can't change.
all right.
It can certainly change.
All right, and we will move on to the good questions, Greg. We'll move on to monthly reports.
So it's really kind of early for the variance report to really mean anything anyway, right? So,
A little bit, I guess. I noticed that right now it looks like payroll is running high, and I just checked payroll dates, and it's because we had one more payroll already so far this year.
Okay.
it's additional teacher. Teacher additional, what is that? And fund, general expense 110. Running at 186.7% FTE.
Which one was it?
Line 118, well, this year, 117.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to look at that one. Traditional time cards. I can look into that and get back to you.
Sure.
Any other concerns on any of the monthly reports?
Bridges, looks like we made a purchase for Bridges Math.
There's been a lot of curriculum purchases going through, lots of ESSER spending. We're gonna do that. I should have mentioned that on the planning calendar portion. We were talking about doing a, like a final ESSER wrap-up report in November, if
Okay,
that works for you. So after the budget is done, in November, we can talk about it, and, everything has to be spent by December. So it all has to be obligated by the end of this month and then spent in December.
sounds good to me. All right, Sam, did you have time to look at the reports?
Yeah.
All right, no
Yeah,
further
the only question I have is, I guess, do we have, is there a separate report for like library purchases? Because I noticed that none of these include like library purchases per se. I guess not every month, there's not library purchases every month pay, so you'd only have like a fund.
That's a good
variance.
point. So the way that we track library purchases is they have their own project code because it's the common school fund, so we have to track it that way. So I don't know how it would appear in this report. Like, it's probably lumped in with whatever else it would be if it's like tech purchases or supplies.
Sure. Because I mean, I've seen from time to time in like the Amazon purchases, I have seen like books and stuff like that, but I wasn't sure if those were for classrooms or for library use.
I know that it's a little bit tricky with the library because we never know exactly how much funding we're getting until almost the very end of the fiscal year. And so a lot of times you'll see a lot of purchases come through in those last couple months. And I think that that's what happened last year.
Sure. Okay, no, that's pretty much it. That's the only question I have.
Fair enough.
Maintenance agreements. I'm just going back to the calendar again, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Don't mean to
If-
dance around.
And we can go back to the calendar, but if we're good on monthly reports,
I think
we'll
we're
move
good.
forward with that as well. Do you have any other questions on the calendar or anything, Greg, or?
Yeah, and so in June, we have, a preliminary budget discussion and then maintenance agreement for HVAC environmental systems preventive maintenance program. NAMI, so in the past, I know we've had, within the last couple of years, we've had discussions about like maintenance agreements in general, like where we maybe review those types of agreements and see if it's necessary to have a different contractor pick up those maintenance agreements, just to make sure that we're getting the best pricing available on those types of agreements. Because, for instance, you have a maintenance contractor that comes in on a regular basis, and we know that those amounts will always be over the $20,000, for the service that they provide. And it's such a cumulative thing. And as a part of practice, it was suggested in years past that we review like a check on our contractors and vendors to make sure that they're being honest in their pricing quotes to us as a district, and review that. Was that the intention behind that June discussion? Or are we, I know I would expect that that's probably part of the role anyway, to be trying to review those purchases and of our contractors, but
I think I can remember talking before about maybe having some sort of a schedule of putting things out to bid when possible. Is that kind of what you mean? Like,
well, for instance, like we'll have general maintenance contractors that will serve the district and, let's just say it's, a printer contractor that their job is to repair the printers, you know? And yeah, we have a specific contract for the printer services. I'm just using that as an example though. Their job is to come in and fix that. And, sometimes we get set in that specific contractor that we aren't aware of other value out in the marketplace that could be, that can help our taxpayers rationalize that, we're doing our part to double check to make sure that those prices are the lowest prices and the best qualified contractor also. I mean, that's a factor, not just the cheapest, but the best qualified. And it would make sense to review that sort of agreement on a regular basis. You know,
I think I understand what you mean, and I think for some things we do that every year, like depending on what it is, and
Sure.
then some things, you know, we maybe have like a 5-year agreement with the copier company, and when that agreement is up, we would go out to bid again.
right,
And then some of this stuff, I'm kind of talking out of my glass, but I think that, you know, it's like proprietary and some of it we can't really change. Is that accurate? Well, you could, but it would be at a cost.
Yeah.
The two that are on here specifically are, HVAC system and the fire protection systems are proprietary.
right,
Doesn't that necessarily mean like we had a 3-year agreement with NAMI for our, HVAC, maintenance contract,
Right.
right? Because they service the Schneider Electric products that we use in a majority of the schools. That's not to say that we couldn't bring in a different contractor and, you know, I mean, as part of what you're gonna see in our, you know, facility assessment, our controls are very out of date.
right,
So that's not to say that we couldn't bring in a different contractor as part of that project that would bring in a new control system. Offhand, I would like, without a major project, we wouldn't be able to do.
no, but I guess what I'm saying is, I'm sure we employ a electrician on a regular basis.
Yep.
And we probably hire the same electrician most of the time, you know, but is it that instance where we look and possibly check that around? You know, or we hire a plumber, or we hire elevator service technician, technical company, and there's probably multiple companies, but very limited. Those sorts of things.
To kind of answer your question, it's kind of played by what it is, right? So
Right.
right now, we have a water heater at Versailles Middle School that's on its last legs. We replaced 3 years ago.
Sure.
So not really happy about that, right? But that, when we replace that water heater, it's probably not gonna be $20,000, but it's gonna be a major expense. It's gonna be over 10, right?
Right.
So that's a situation where we're calling around to different plumbing contractors, and having them come in and give us quotes, because we know it's gonna be a pretty big cost.
Mhm.
If it's replacing a hose bib that's leaking outside, that's gonna be a small dollar cost. I need somebody to come in and fix it as fast as I can, because I don't want water spraying outside or have to deal with the shut off faucet and stuff like that.
Right.
So you kind of make a decision based on whether it is, number one, what the emergency or what the emergence of the issue is, and how fast we need to get it fixed. And then number two, just using our, you know, how much is this gonna be? And, you know, if it's pretty expensive, we know that we're gonna wanna get 3 quotes just to keep folks honest with each other.
I guess I'm looking at it from a kind of a one-off situation where if we hire the same contractors regularly, we want to be making sure that, you know, we're looking at that situation and, making sure that those charges are reasonable and, that we're also not, being exclusive to one vendor over the course of like 10 years. Maybe we need to be looking at that more regularly, that sort of thing. I don't know.
if I'm hearing correctly from Kevin, and I think you guys are both saying the same thing,
Mhm.
just in different verbiage, like, yeah, it is looked at every so often. But then it also depends on the project too. I mean, if ABC plumbing can come and fix a hose bib real quick and they're local and,
Right.
you know, go ahead and use them. If it's gonna be a major thing, you know, like you're saying, water. So I mean, I think you guys are both saying the same thing, that, yeah, they're looked at. But if it's something like super quick and it's $100 fix, it just gets fixed.
Or, right.
Yeah.
I don't think anything costs $100.
Well, I don't think so either. You're not wrong, but, all right, fair enough. With that being said, looking at action items. Minus going all the way into June, right? But for next month, I don't think there's any action items that came up today. So with that being said, unless there's any further questions, next meeting is October 23rd. And we would be adjourned at 7:46 unless there's more questions. 7:46 it is.